So we're back on the third day of 12 days of fountain pens. Today with the great Jose Munuera. We're going to be talking about nib grinding and nib tuning and all the nib stuff that he can do and the magic. We all love that, we all want a flex nib from him and from so, but let's not forget that we're gonna have a giveaway of 3 bottles of Robert Oster's citrus. They're gonna be shipped tomorrow with the ones from yesterday and the day before. On the quiz, which is gonna be on the last day, on the 12th days of Christmas. Oh, sorry, fountain pens. We're gonna be giving away. They're going to be part of the prizes for the winners on the quiz. This Lalex, it's a very, very beautiful fountain pen given to us by Steph of Gramia Pens. This amazing, it's on my pen tray. This amazing pen. The Von Argand by Dan Spence. There you go, the hairy guy over there. And this is gonna be, it's also a prize on the quiz. And I'd like to thank Dragon Meat as well to providing us, and John Dodd providing us with the Zoom account, and Izod as well. That's going to be providing us, and also a pen for the quiz, right? Okay, without further ado, please welcome Jose Munuera, and let's hear what he has to say. Let's learn.
All right. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm going to send Google Drive link. I hope it works, because if not, I don't know what to do. That's just a Word document with the links for the materials I use. Most of them are actually the ones I used. The ones, it's asking me for, great. It's asking me for, I'll do it later. Let me see if I can. Oh, okay, I'm an idiot. Just 1 second. It's just the materials I'm using, and apparently I set it as not shareable. Okay, you should be able to access now, but just in case, let me see.
Yes.
You can access.
Yeah.
Great. All right. It's super boring. You can have a look now, but basically I've divided it into reasonable things. First is the basic tools that I think most of us should have, basically because if we're spending upwards of 50 quid in a fountain pen, you should be at least able to tune it to your preferences. So let's start, and I'll show you what I have here. So first thing, I think this is probably the first thing I got is Micromesh, which is the main thing that we can use for smoothing a nib. There's 2 kinds of Micromesh. This is one that you can get, like a flexi library sheet. And there's this kind, which is like a pad, which is also flexi. Personally, I like this one more. It's bigger, they cost around the same for the set, and they're fairly similar to use. But I think this is easier to walk around. In the same line, I have here Mylar, which is basically the same idea. They're both abrasives, they're both very, very soft. And this is the last step in any kind of polishing, because this is the finest kind of abrasive you can find. You can get this in any kind of online retailer like Amazon or eBay. And this one in particular, I got from the writing desk, which I pretty much like. And those I'll use later for not so much tuning, but smoothing the surface of the nib. Then things for dismantling your pens. The thing I use the most is this rubber thing. This is actually taken from a bike pneumatic, but I have no idea where to get this. So this is the one that you can get from Pure Pens, and it does the same. It costs 50p, and it's pretty fun to use. So basically, you can use this to get out the nib and the tip, and it's really, really useful. A couple of these will serve to basically, dismantle any unscrewable or taken out pen. What else? And oh yeah, basic thing. Since we are dealing with really tiny things, we need any kind of magnifying glass. I don't use this one that much, but it's pretty cool. It has an LED that works sometimes because I've used it a lot, and it costs like 3 quid. Get one of these because you can use it to see. To see a nib pretty close, and it is really, really useful.
Let me ask just 1 second, Jose. Can you move your camera a little bit down?
Not really.
Okay. Because it was cutting right on the bottom. Yes. Now we can see a little bit of your desk. Beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, I'll switch the camera anyways to do all the tooling and so on. I don't use this one in particular because for nib grinding, I think it's much more useful to use one of these things. This costs like £10. I look like an idiot when I use it, but it's super useful. So this one is also there. And you also have links for all the kinds of usual nibs that you can have a look. I've used tens of these Jinghao Nibs. These are super cheap, and you can use them for practice. This is a number size nib, and this will fit Moonman, Jinghao, Bok, and sometimes Jowo, but I wouldn't recommend it. But it's super cheap. So for everything you want to do, these are the thing. They cost less than 50p each. And in the same line, I like these ones. These are Moonman Nibs. These come from around £2 each, and they come with the fit and collar. The fit is really, really good for the price, and the nib is decent. And I'm not going to show the others because you already know them. So what I want to do today is to show basically how we can grind things without any tooling. And I'll show you my power tool. I don't have one, and what we can do with them. So more tools. Most important one, sandpaper, if we want to get into tools. And to be honest, I use this one, 1000 grit. It's cheap. It's really, really cheap, and you only need this one. To be honest, this along with the Micromesh. That's it. I tend to use right now. I only use the more fine grits, the finer grits, the 8K and 12K. That's what I put in the document. You can use all the grits, but you need to be super careful because even though the tipping is hard and this is fine, it will eat up the tipping. So be very, very careful and very, very gentle, and use cheap nibs, because if not, you're going to lose money. And don't start with expensive nibs like I did. What else? One stupid thing that might be overlooked. It's masking tape. This is really, really useful for any grinding thing. And it might seem stupid, but when you grind a gold nib that is rolling plated, like I did, you can see the gold color. Okay, this used to be rolling plated. And when I ground this corrosive metallic, I damaged the rolling plating because I didn't mask with the masking tape. So if you're using cheap steel nibs that are not plated, you don't care. And basically any scratch that you make, you can fix with any polishing. But if you're doing the gold-plated nibs or any kind of gold nibs, masking tape is the best thing. This is cheap. This is like £2. And masking tape, this is hobby style masking tape, and it's actually squishy. So it actually withstands the sanding pretty well. So this is really useful. I don't know if other kinds of tape work, but this one is really nice. And also it's not really that much sticky, so it won't damage anything. And then up to here, it's just basic tools, hand tools, nothing fancy. And this actually is not really fancy, but it's a cordless drill, which makes everything really fast. And you'll know later, it's useful for many things. So this one is the cheapest I could find here. It's less than £20. It came with a lot of not really useful things, but you can get different attachments. And the ones I like the most are sanding drums. You can get this in different grids. I use 400 and 600. Everything is in the document. And the useful thing about this is when you're grinding, one of the most important things, particularly with italics, which is the one that I'm going to make later, you need to make, it's so hard to see. Let me see if I can, yeah. Hope you can see. It's hard to focus,
yeah.
But then the tipping in an italic or any kind of this kind of needs to have very sharp angles, or at least that's the start, and then you can round. So if you want to do that, you need to keep every angle that you do when grinding very consistent. So a power tool is really useful because it allows you to remove material very consistently with a consistent angle. And with a bit of practice, you can get really sharp angles, which is what we're looking for in general. So sanding drums are cool, and this is, I haven't found this anywhere, but I make them myself. I have these sanding discs. So this shank from any cutting disc, and I cut them from plastic and glue sandpaper to them. I have a few. This one is 800. I used it yesterday, and they eat up the material faster than you think. So careful with them. But if you make this, they are really, really useful because they provide a really flat surface that you can grind faces on. So for making italics is pretty useful. You can also do them in the drums, which I tend to use this because they are more versatile, but both are interesting. And regarding power tools, I use buffing wheels to polish things, not the actual writing surface, because this will give the biggest baby's bottom that you've seen. So don't use it for the tipping. Do the polishing and the smoothing with the micromesh. But this is useful if you scratch anything and you want to fix it, or if you want to take off the plating or anything, these things are useful. And you also need a polishing compound that is there. And in the same line, for the same kind of things, I use rubberized abrasives. These are silicone embedded with some kind of abrasive, and they are really useful. These things are dangerous in the sense that they are hard to use. If the nib catches here, it's going to display, so careful, but super useful, and they give a really nice surface. And basically that's it. There's other things that I'm not going to use today, but if you want to try and make stack nibs, you have the materials there, and it's pretty straightforward. You basically have to make them get together and glue them. So that's basically it. All right, so yes, I would recommend them. I don't use them because I'm an idiot, but these things usually, unless you're cutting things with the diamond wheels, I haven't showed them, but if you need to cut the nibs, you would use this. Sometimes you get some grind, and so it's useful. Usually I have this thing on, so for me, no. And in general, try to not breathe anything. But that only applies if you're actually cutting things or grinding at a very high speed. So for the regular nib grinding, nothing is going to happen. You don't even see the grid. So usually you don't need to worry about those. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to, oh yeah, last thing. I'm going to switch the camera so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. Another thing that's really useful here, I took one Moonman collar that broke. You can see that it has a notch there. That's because it broke from a different pen. And basically I covered it in a different kind of masking tape. So it's useful for me for holding nibs. So you can, instead of fucking up all your fits, you can fuck up just one of them. You can stick any nib here. So it's going to hold it pretty nicely, very easily to take out. Not necessarily you can hold the nib by itself when grinding, but it's useful to have something solid that you can grab. Also, when grinding, if you make force with them, which you shouldn't, it's going to splay, and this will prevent that somewhat. So in general, this is useful. Although not all the cuts that we need to do or grinds are for this setting, but it's a nice thing to have. All right, so let's try to move things around and switch to the other camera. Oh, and I didn't show, but for some things I use this kind of clip-on lens. They are macro lenses, and for taking pictures and so they're useful. And that's what I'm going to use when I need to show the actual tipping, because there's no way to focus. So I'm going to make a cursive italic. We'll try it and see. I hope we can hear what happens and how it sounds and how to tune it a bit. So first, let's start with the tuning, which I think is more useful for people. So first things, hope you can see beside my dirty nail, I hope you can see the tipping there. Probably you can see it even better if I add the second lens. So bear with me. Here we are. Okay. Hope the light is nice. Okay, this is a Moonman Nib. You can see the mountain and the half moon thingy. And as you can see, this is straight from the factory and it's not properly aligned. Can you see it? Hope you can. So one thing that I've learned very recently is that the right way to check if something is properly aligned for writing is not like I'm doing now, because the actual writing surface, let me get my pointy thing. Where did I put it? Okay, here it is. The actual writing surface is not at the, here. It's not this thing that is facing us. The actual writing surface is here, a bit upwards. Hope this makes sense, right here. So if we want to know how the point that contains the paper is, we need to look at it like this. So we need to look at it like this. Does that make sense? Hope it does, because the writing surface is here. Can see the thing. All right, here, this what I'm touching is the writing surface. So when we are trying to assess how a nib will perform, we need to check that. This is going to be difficult for me because I can see a thing in my screen, but basically, these nibs usually come pretty pressed together, so they are really dry from the box. But we can basically what we can do. Hope this can focus. Is push them apart with the fingernails, so they become more open. And now we can move them up and down until we set up like we like. Let me check outside the camera because I can't see anything. Okay. It looks fairly good to me. They are more or less at the same height. Right. So now what we have to do if we want to make a cursive italic is to make the right-hand surface, which is currently like a circle. The right-hand surface is this, where the needle is pointing. We want to make that right-hand surface a really tiny rectangle. So in order to do that, what we need to do is to, you see this curved surface that is pointing you, we need to make that into a flat grind, and we need to take the rounded tip into another rectangle. Usually, cursive italics have flat tops, but that's not needed. The only thing that we care about is to make this curved side that are pointing now. We need to make that into a very sharp angle, as sharp as we want. I usually do 90 degrees because for me that makes sense, and you can round them off however much you like, but you can do whatever you want. So people sometimes recommend starting with the top side, which we are not really caring that much about. So I'm going to start with the bottom. Right. All right. As you can see here, these are ink stains, so you can obviously do any grinding wet or dry. Usually, wet grinding is going to be softer, but it doesn't make a lot of difference. You can dip it into water or into ink, and you're going to end with stinky fingers. Usually not an issue, but here you go. So we need to do two cuts, one in this direction and one in this direction, right? So we flatten this spot and this spot. Usually I start with the lower one for no particular reasons. And the most important thing is that you need to keep this angle constant and this angle constant. And this one is a difficult one because we tend to usually rotate in one sense or the other. So this takes practice, but it's not an impossible thing to do. So basically, we grab it as firmly as we can without forcing it, and we run it through. The nice thing of doing this, we think, is that you can see very clearly when you're doing something. Okay. Since this is 1000 and it's pretty used, it's going to be very soft on the nib, and the grinding is going to be pretty slow. You can use higher grids or lower grids, but I recommend starting at 1000. And if 1000 is too slow or too fast for you, you can change. Right? Let's check and see if we've created a surface. Right, from the side, it looks pretty nice. Ooh, can you see the scratches? I can see the scratches. I hope you can. Right, so basically, by doing this, we're creating a flat spot on the bottom. And what we need to check is that the flat that we're making here is parallel to the plane of the nib, because if not, it's going to be weird. We can fix that pretty easily, and it's not going to be the end of the world, but we need to check that. So I'm going to imagine I finished that. I'm not really sure, I'll check later. And now we need to do this one. So it's the same. You take it and very gently, I'm not applying basically any pressure. Here is the same. I need to control this angle because that's going to control how italic or oblique is going to be. If we want to make an oblique, we'll do this. And we need to control this because that's going to control the 90-degree angle or less or more. So careful with that. It takes some practice, basically. It's nothing out of the world. You can see here that we're creating grit, which means we're grinding things. Going to be not so gentle, so we can speed up a bit. All right, let's check. Okay, can you see the spot? I hope you can. So if we look at it from this side, all right, can you see I hope that you can see that there's a flat spot on the bottom and there's a flat spot on the left, which is the pointing outwards, let's say. My English is not very good today. Right, so we need to check, and this is a bit difficult, that the actual writing surface is a rectangle, and it kind of is, but not really. So we need to continue going this way, like eating up from this side, and maybe from the bottom to make those two surfaces at 90 degrees connect into a line. And it's going to be easier if we do it like this, because grinding the bottom doesn't do much. We actually don't need to remove a lot of material. That's the nice thing. It looks better already. And to be honest, this goes much faster if we use these thingies. So the way of using is plug this here. Sorry for the noise that is coming now. I suggest you lower the volume. And then you see, yeah. Basically, this way we can keep the angles much easier. But in all honesty, it's going to be more or less the same. Right, let's try it. This is the pen I use for testing. It's a Moonman T1. I have nibless, and this is a modified nib, so you don't need that modified fit. You need to carve out your plastic fits. And let's take the testing paper and some blotting paper. So I'm going to do this hard way. Woo! We're done. All right. So, can you hear this? Do you hear the scratchiness? Because I'm used to it, so I can hear it. This shouldn't sound like this. So, well, what's happened now is that we've formed two very nice surfaces, and 1000 grit is still pretty soft, like pretty fine, but it gives a very rough surface compared to what fountain pens usually have in the tip. So let's polish it. Since we are going from 1000, I have here 3200, 3600, 4K, 6K, 8K, and 12K. And honestly, right now you can do these two are also this sandpaper I'm using. So the thing with this is, if we want to polish the surface that we created, yeah, this is a medium size. This Moonman medium, which I'm not sure if it's really a medium or what. Since if we want to polish just the surface that we created and not the writing surface, we can do whatever we want. We can progress from the yeah, we can go from the coarser grit, which is these two that really eat up the material, and then progress. Or to be honest, usually you can just start at least at 4K, which is this one, and then go up. I'm going to speed up the process. I'm going to start with 6K. Yeah, 6K. So if we want to polish the surface, just use the same angles. And let's go here. Oh, sorry. That's what I meant when I said that it's more useful for this to have it inked, because you can see actually if you're doing anything. Right now, I'm not trying to polish the writing surface. What I'm trying to do is to make those two surfaces nicer and smoother. If I polish the writing surface now with this 6K, what I'm going to do is to round off that nice 90-degree angle, and the course of vitality is going to become more established, and the fine line is going to be less italic, and more. We will have less line variation. So let's go with this. This is 8K. And then here. Usually it's a nice thing to take off some ink in between different widths, so you don't contaminate them, and you're actually grinding with the size you want and not the coarser one. That's fine. This is not really a science. Okay, so now what we've done is made nice this surface and this surface. So let's try again and see what happens. Probably it will sound more or less the same. To me, it sounds a bit better. The thickness is more or less the same as it was before, so I'm pretty happy with that. But now I want to polish the surface, so I'll take 12K and do some figure eights. Very soft with this, because if not, I will eat up the material and lose my sharpness, which I don't want. What I want to do is knock the corners of that rectangle so everything goes smoothly, right? So turn a bit, and it's nice to go from a very low angle to a very high angle, right? Do some nice figure eights, do whatever you want. Just try to touch up the surface in any direction that you can, so you knock off any corners. And after this, let's clean it off a bit and take the Micromesh, which is my favorite thing. As you can see, I've used it quite a bit. And it's the same. It has two sides, a shiny and a matte side. The matte side is the wood one. Right, that's it. I don't know if my phone picks up the difference in noise, but this is quite a lot smoother. Right, so as you can see, it takes like 5 minutes to do a nice cursive from a medium. You can do the same with any kind of nib, and this is probably the most basic tuning and grinding that you can do with a nib. It's always nice to keep checking that anytime you do anything, the nib, the tines are still aligned. So let's check that just in case. Ooh, looks nice from the top. Doesn't look that great from the side. You can see that one is a bit over the other. The writing surface looks great. Yeah, looks pretty nice. As you can see here, these nibs are not amazing. Can you see that one side of the tipping is bigger than the other? So that's what you get with that 2-pound nib. It's nice if you want to do extra fine a needle point. You want to stack them. These are pretty fine. They are somewhat hard, not as soft as the Jinghaos. They work nice. Okay, just 2 side notes before we start with the questions. One thing that people asked me during the post that I made is about tuning basic Jinghao Nibs, cheap Jinghao Nibs, and make them, for example, finer or broader. So, that's great. So, how you can see here that the writing surface is rounded. So the contact with the paper is relatively small. So if we grind if we make a plane in this direction and we eat up some of the material, we will increase the writing surface. So what we can do here is take out our 1000 grit paper and just write on it. Oh, yeah, not ink. Never mind. When we do that, what we're doing is creating a plane that's going up and eating out the material and increasing the writing surface. Let's have before and after. So this all makes a bit of sense. So this is the before. Let's see if we can increase that. It's useful to turn it so you knock off the corners. Sorry for the scratching noise. I know it's disgusting. And Can you see the difference? I can see the difference. So that way, it's very crude. I know it looks wrong, but that's a way that you can increase the size of the line width. As you can see here, it's not symmetric. So depending on how the tip is shaped, it's going to be different for any kind of tipping, but you can try. And last thing, if you want to do the opposite, if you want to diminish, that's a bit harder, but you can try. What you would do is to take your nib, rotate it, and drag it from the side. So what you would do is create two planes in these directions and make it sharper. So the writing surface in contact with the paper will be smaller. Hope that makes sense. Basically, you go like this, and you're taking out from the side, and you go like this, and you take out from the other side. If you go totally from the side, you're not creating any ink because the slate is not touching. And let's see if this has made any progress. Okay. Can you see the surface there? I hope. Inky fingers. All right. What I'm doing now is creating those planes on the sides, and the writing surface is getting smaller. You can see that it's like a rectangle that I created before. Now I'm making that rectangle smaller. This is really hard. Okay, I hope you can see it there. So the writing surface now is more like it was like that, and now I'm taking out this. Not much of a difference yet, but that's probably because I made it bigger before. That's the basics. We could go on and on and on about things that we can do, but I think it's better to stop now from my rambling, and we can have some questions and answers and have a chat, right?
Okay, excellent. Let me just, okay, so two things. First, you can all remember to raise your hand, click on you, choose the raise hand option to ask a question. And second thing, don't forget to send an email to 12daysoffountainpens@bemed.io. It's on the chat. I'm going to post over there again to enter the giveaway for these lovely inks that Jose was going to announce the winners later on. You have up until 5 minutes to 10 to send me an email. Any email that arrives after that, it's out. Okay? Right. Raise your hands if you want to ask a question. Please. There you go, Apurva.
That was amazing. Like, I think everyone agrees that that was really informative. I think I've talked about nib grinds to so many people, but I've never seen it like actually in action. So I have many questions, but I don't think I can come up with one to ask just now. But I just wanted to say that was very informative. So I'll leave the questions to other people.
Cool. Anyone else wants to ask a question? There you go, Dan. You can unmute yourself. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Just a quick question, really. How does it differ between steel nibs and the softer ones? Are there more precautions you should take?
I don't know how.
So yes, there's actually a big difference. It's hard to explain, but let me try and see. So when you're using, when you're grinding a nib and you're holding it like this, it's very easy to turn it like this because it's a natural motion that we do. So the difference between, for example, this one that is pretty hard and a softer one like the Jinghao one is that softer ones tend to move. I don't know if you can see it. It tends to move the tines upwards and downwards. So you're trying to get them like this, and it's very easy when you move them like this that they go like that.
I was thinking more the softer metals like golds and
That's what I mean. When you have softer metals like gold, it depends a lot on the geometry. But basically, what happens usually is they tend to move around a lot more.
Okay.
So you need to be very careful not applying a lot of pressure. And if you start with a nib that is like this, it's going to be difficult to make it very parallel. So basically you need to be more careful and check the tying alignment a lot more, but that's basically it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else wants to ask a question? Oh, there you go. Ian wants to ask a question. You can ask later after Phil. Go on, Kaya. Is it Kaya, right? That pronounces. You can unmute yourself. Yeah, it's the same name as my wife. It's Polish, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my wife is Kaya, but it's the Portuguese version, writes differently.
Ah, nice. Right. Jose, at what point do you know, can you go too far with a grind? And if you can, at what point do you know that you've gone too far and you've messed up the nib?
Oh, sorry. It's pretty difficult to actually mess up a nib because the tipping usually, at least when you go for medium or broader nibs, it's pretty big. So you usually have, even though we're talking about 0.5 millimeter of sphere, you have a lot of materials. That said, sometimes I'll show you my first actual cursive italic that I have here. And actually, I went too far. It's a pop nib, number 5. Can you see the tipping? I bet you can't because it's not there. I blended everything into there. So what happens usually when you go too far is that you eat up the material. And if you start going into the nib this way, you take out all the tipping. That can happen, but you need to take out a lot of material. So it is not an easy question to answer. Basically, the way you know you're going too far is if you run out of tipping, which unless you're doing grinding on an extra fine or something like that, it's usually not happening. So in any case, start with chip nibs, and you need to feel them. You need to do the grinding yourself to understand how much force you need to make, how they behave. These ones are very different. If you work with Jinghao and Moonman, they behave very differently, so you need to learn from them. And you can get this very, very cheap, so you can destroy them. That's the actual way of learning with these things.
Cool. Okay, Phil. Okay, where is Phil? Okay, there you go. Go on, Phil.
I'm wondering if there's a resource somewhere that tells you what you need to do for each nib type. You've demonstrated the italic. Obviously, stub is slightly different. I don't know if there's somewhere that tells you which you need to do. You know, a drawing.
There's 2 things that for me are. There's one thing that for me is super useful. If you go to Applebaum, this German, I think it's German online shop.
Dutch.
Dutch.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll show you in the. They have a really nice grinding service, and the nice thing with that is they have digital pictures, not digital drawings of the tip shape, very zoomed up, so you can see exactly what kind of grinds, what kind of shapes you have to place. Let me see if I can find. So I haven't seen it in a while. Need customization, yeah. If you go into Applebaum, it's trying to load. But basically, here.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exactly what we need, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Ian. Go on, Ian. Ask your question.
My question was already asked by Kaya. I have a lot of vintage gold nibs. They've got very little tipping on there, and I just want to do something with them rather than just having this big flat mess that comes out. So obviously the tipping is going to go because the tipping itself is so small.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be going down to gold, which I know I've written with in the past. Do you think there's an issue with that at all?
To be honest, people say that it's going to wear out, and I'm not sure. I don't know if the amount of writing that we do is enough to actually wear out the gold. So I really don't know. My suggestion, I had to do that with my only vintage nib. It's a Parker Vacuumatic that came with a terrible nib. And I very gently took out the least amount of material that I could. So it made a very nice italic. So if you're very careful, first of all, check the alignment, because that's the first issue that happens everywhere. If you check the alignment and it's still scratchy or writes weird, then you need to smooth it with, start with the softer thing that you can get, the 12K Micromesh, very gently take out the least amount of material, and then you can work out, okay, first, the loop is going to be your best friend for that, because you can analyze exactly what's wrong with it. And usually it's just misalignment of the times. That's what happened with mine, plus it was asymmetrical. So
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but I wouldn't try to write just with gold, just in case.
Okay, all right. I might have to put up with a fat, whatever it is. I think it's a triple board now, but yeah, we'll see where it goes. Thank you very much, Jose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, James.
Hi. That was really fascinating. I've really been very interested in that. Thank you very much. But I'm a left-handed overline writer, so I tend to write with the paper turned at right angles and write from above. Do you understand? And I'm wondering, I really want to try things like italic nibs and stuff like that. But how do I get that to work for me?
Let me try and understand what's the situation here. So basically you write like this.
Yeah, I write from above the line.
From above, and you turn, so you write like that.
My paper at right angles to perpendicular. So
like this.
I just find that, yeah, that's exactly it. Yes.
Okay, so in this position, your writing is just 180 degrees from my writing. So italics are going to work the same because you have your thicker lines in this direction and your thinner lines in this direction. The problem that you may have is that you're pushing when I'm dragging the other way around. So
yeah,
what you need is to have the surface at the very end of the tip very softly rounded, so that you don't push into the paper, but rather glide on top of it. So that
I think I've had before where it digs in.
Yeah. I think you can solve that by rounding the tip. Let me see, perhaps. If instead of, I'll do it the other way. If instead of having this very sharp, if you round this surface using Micromesh, doing like this, you will have probably a thicker line in that direction, but at least a very nice surface to push into.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
I hope this helps.
I work precious metals, so I kind of have the materials to hand. It's just how to use them.
Yeah, just you're used to doing these things, and maybe you're doing to do bigger things. But it's just being very gentle with the more gentle abrasives that you have.
And I need to be brave.
Yeah. Right. I'm not sure if it was Andrew, Matthews, or Claire that was first. Can you raise your hand who was before? Okay, let's let the ladies talk first then. Go on, Claire.
Thank you. Excellent sort of talk, Jose. Really, really interesting. But I wanted to ask, I have no real interest in italic nibs for myself. I don't like to use them, but I have a real interest in architects. I've talked to Noah about it at length, but how much more complex is the process of grinding an architect compared to the italic? Obviously, there's the angle that's different for everybody, but would you use the same sort of materials? Like, would you just use the micromesh, or do you need more technical equipment for it?
You can do anything that I do, and anything you can find in any grinding Nibmeister thing. Anything that we do, you can do it with these things. And to be honest, you can do 99% of that with just sandpaper. The thing with architects is you need to control the angle of the nib going like this, like how wide is like that, and how is your writing angle. So you need to check that your writing angle lines up with the paper, if that makes sense. So the thing with hand tools, it's very easy to make hand tools, and I mean hand grinding and sandpaper. The thing with that is very easy to make round things because our movements tend to be round. So with architects, you can make a very kind of rounded nib, if that makes sense. So you can do, basically what you do is you take the sides, I'll have a nib here. You take nib from the side and you drag it like this. So you're shaping, you're creating a plane here, and then a plane here. So you can do it with just sandpaper, but it's much more easy when you do with this, because you just need to hold, you can check the angle. The nice thing about this, probably the thing that I haven't mentioned, is that I can do this. I can take my goggles and work here. And now I'm seeing exactly what I'm doing. I can see the angle perfectly. So that way I can hold everything in the right angle and the right position. So you can do it with hand tools, but it's a bit more difficult. But basically you can do anything with hand tools. It's just this makes it more repeatable, quicker, and a bit easier.
Cool. Thank you.
Can you come back and show us an architect grind? I don't do regular architects, but I do curved architects, which are basically the same. I have one that I'm
Is
using.
that so that you don't catch the edge on the paper?
Yeah, my favorite grind is Naginata, which is basically a fancy curved architect. So it's because of that, and because it works. A curved architect, and particularly Naginata, it works at any angle because it's curved such as the writing surface is always the same, no matter what you do. It's like writing with a disc. So this is not a regular architect. This is my, let's see something there. Can you see it from the side?
Yeah. So how does that write then with it being curved?
So it writes exactly as if you take cursive italic and you turn it 90 degrees, exactly the same. I'll show it to you here. If I can turn the camera.
Tactile borrow never at the moment, which doesn't catch the paper. So I don't know if that's like that with the curved edges. It's fabulous.
That's it. Yeah, this one is a bit more tricky because it has two nibs and you have to control a bit more things, but it would be the same. I just can't find one here. So yeah, it's basically cursive italic turned 90 degrees. That's basically it. And yeah, you really can do. The first one I made like that, I made it just with sandpaper. So you can actually do that. Just took me a while to get the size nice.
I'm not sure I have the patience for that.
You need to screw up a few nibs and learn how they behave. So then you can not screw up the next ones. But that's the only way I know.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question whilst I do the drawing. When I, draw the winners for tonight. And okay, so I think, I'm not sure if it was Tapper or Mateos, but you already asked the question yesterday, Tapper, so I'm gonna let Mateos ask the question. You can unmute yourself, Mateos. Where is him? Oh, they vanished. Okay. There you go. Again, ask to unmute. Did you unmute yourself, Mateos? I don't know how you pronounce that. Is it Mateos? Like that? Oh, your computer is not allowing you to unmute. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna allow Gary to ask his question then. Sorry, Mateos. Then if you have time, you're gonna let Andrew, because he's been waiting for an hour as well. We have 51 participants, and you can unmute yourself, Mr. Gary. There you go.
It's a very, very quick question anyway, so you might be able to squeeze another one in. It was basically you using Mylar for finishing off the polishing. Is that a personal preference thing, or does it do a better or safer job than Micromesh?
Okay, just Jose is keeping muting, getting muted. I don't know why.
It's a mix of both. The numbers say that Mylar, the one I use, which is 0.1 microns, it's a bit finer, so it should give you a more polished surface. And to be honest, most of the time I can't really tell the difference when I use one or when I use the other after. So, kind of. I saw a couple of questions there. The fancy architect is called Naginata. It's only done by Sailor and our weird shit like me. Which was the other question? I saw. Do you use anything like foil to clean? Oh yeah, there's one.
You turned off your video, so.
Oh crap!
There you go.
Oh my bad, I was checking the chat. Yes, there's one tool that I forgot to show you, which is one of the basics, and you'll see it in the. Probably you've seen brushings announced over the internet for fountain pens. I use these stainless steel shins, and this is actually for either opening the tines of the nib, so you push it through, and then you can wiggle it. So this way you can open the tines very safely. I can use them for cleaning the slide, and you can also use sometimes just the thread, so I can push there and pull. And these things I also use for stacking nibs, so I can have them like that. So yeah, this is the thing that I use. I think I saw another question there. Other grinds that where you need to add tipping? Yes, basically very, very big grinds like the architect, the super architect that I showed. For this, I need 2 nibs. And there are really weird grinds that you can have, like weird tipping material coming out, and you need to add tipping by soldering or welding, but I don't know how to do that. I know the principle, but I don't have the equipment. But in general, if I want to make any extreme grind, like a reversible, extra fine to double rod, something like that, what I do is add nibs. Do stack nib, this 2-layer, or more. So that way I have a lot of material that I can grind into the shape I want. I don't know if there's time for more questions, or we should announce the...
Yes, I'm gonna send it to you now. Where are you, Jose?
Over chat. Okay.
Yeah. Facebook chat.
Oh, Facebook chat. Cool.
Yeah. This way you can check on the computer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm terrible with pronunciation, so please bear with me. So the first one is Joel Walmsley. Oh, sorry about that. So Joel Walmsley is the first one.
Yay!
The second one is Swati. And the third one is Ian Hiscock. So congrats to both the three winners.
Right. Please remember to send an email with your address to the same email you sent to win the inks, and I'll mail them for you tomorrow. Yay!
Thank you very much for coming. And if anyone wants to ask me anything about these things that I kind of know a bit about, you can message me on Facebook. I'll be there. And I like to talk about these things. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks everyone for showing up, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.
See everyone tomorrow.
Bye.